I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. What to listen for at the party conventions and why Catholics need to be part of the electoral process.
People should, voters, Catholics, there are issues out there that are very important to family, very important to business, very important to the church and to education.
Plus, making the church's voice heard.
Give us a respectful hearing. The Catholic voice is an important voice in a secular society.
And prayers that a man who was once a slave may soon be a saint.
Venerable Pierre Toussaint, Haitian born, and was an immigrant who worked hard to help the people of God.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Republican National Convention got underway Monday at 2 p.m. in Tampa, Florida. There, delegates will officially nominate the party's candidates for president and vice president. Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney's nomination is scheduled to take place tomorrow, as would approval of a conservative party platform. The RNC convention actually went into recess immediately following Chairman Reince Priebus's gavel calling the event at the Tampa Bay Times Forum to order. The convention was cut from 4 days to 3 because of the threat posed by approaching Tropical Storm Isaac. Meantime, Democratic National Convention just around the corner, scheduled to begin on September 4th. How does the race look so far? Well, a new Associated Press GFK poll of registered voters shows the race is about even, with 47% in Obama's corner compared with 46% backing Romney. And of course, there are a host of issues that weigh heavily on Catholics to consider, including the constitutionality of the HHS mandate, the principles of religious freedom, and the fate of Catholic education. Well, taking all this into account, it is clear every vote counts. But just how important are these conventions when making this critical choice? Well, for some answers, I spoke with George Prezioso and Brian Kasuba from the Catholic Citizen Committee. The organization aims to educate Catholics on how to practice faithful citizenship by supporting and advocating the teachings of the Church in the public arena. George and Brian, thank you so much for being here. Now, before we get into the heart of this interview, I do want to clarify that the Catholic Church itself does not endorse one party versus another. She is strictly nonpartisan, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to totally put that out there, because once we get into the heart of it, we're going to learn a little bit more about the Republican National Convention as well as the Democratic National Convention. Why are they so important?
Well, just because the church doesn't endorse one party over the other, this is a democracy. And it's no time to be apathetic. You know, people should, voters, Catholics, there are issues out there that are very important to family, very important to business, very important to the church and to education. And we should be in the arena.
Mm-hmm. See, the thing that I've been seeing, following this, researching it as much as I can, is a lot of people are thinking of this as one big public relations opportunity for both parties. Is that true or false?
I think over the years, more so than it was before. You know, the prince has already been crowned. We all know Romney's the nominee, so there's no more back office. But however, it's going to be on television. It's a major news event. There's going to be information about the party, about his agenda, about what he wants to do. So I think it's important for people to watch.
Let's break it down a little bit, and I want to bring you in this right now, Brian. What are some of the major issues that Catholics and everyone should really be interested in right now when we're watching these conventions? What are we listening for?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of issues that Catholics need to pay attention to. I mean, for one, the religious freedom issue, which has become such a hot button issue over the past summer in Washington, that really has helped mobilize and bringing Catholics more in tune with what's going on in national politics. But I mean, to follow up on what George said earlier, I mean, yes, these conventions have become more of a PR platform, but because of that, you know, both the Republicans and the Democrats are controlling exactly what issues are being spoken at these conventions. They're controlling who gets speaking time, what the messages are, and Catholics need to listen to these messages and find out, are they speaking to us? Are they speaking to our issues and our concerns? And they then need to make the right decision as to who to vote for based upon are they speaking to our demographics?
And let's not lose sight of the fact that a lot of polls, Pew Research, CNN polls, just about any poll you can name right now, really drive home the fact that Catholics are an extremely important vote right now. Do you think we underestimate what we need to know and what power we have when we head to the polls?
I believe we'll be more of an informed electorate if we're knowledgeable of the issues, and this is why to participate in the arena, to watch these conventions, to read the news, it will make us more informed, and as more informed voters, we can make more informed decisions.
Mm-hmm. As a church, and in your experience, do you find that Catholics are more or less involved right now in the voting process? And how do you stir the senses? How do you make them a little bit more encouraged to actually, make a difference?
Sure, I think we've started that this past summer. Bishop DiMarzio really wanted to put a focus on, voting and registering Catholics to vote. The Catholic Citizens Committee has taken up that cause. To date, we've run 75 nonpartisan voting drives throughout the diocese. We hope to run another 20 to 30 by the end of the end of September. And through that, not only are we registering voters, but we're supplying them with educational materials. We're sending speakers to masses to speak on the religious freedom issue, the importance of voting their faith. We're also developing a very extensive mailing list that the Catholic Citizens Committee will then use to send educational materials to Catholics, reminding them to vote, reminding them who standing for what issues, so they can make an educated decision. So watch the conventions, but get involved with the Catholic Citizens Committee, learn about what the issues are and what issues are affecting our faith.
All right, thank you guys so much. We could talk about this forever, but I just got to wrap. But thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you clarified what we need to know and why the vote is so important. Maybe we'll have you back after November to kind of recap it for us.
Sounds great.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
So important to get out there and vote. Stay tuned. The rest of the day's headlines are next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. While New York Archbishop Cardinal Timothy Dolan will give the final benediction at the Republican National Convention this week, a report says the Obama campaign turned down the Cardinal's offer to pray at the Democratic National Convention. In a statement last week, New York Archdiocese spokesman Joe Zwilling said it was made clear that Cardinal Dolan would not be at the Republican convention to give an endorsement. In that statement, Zwilling said the Cardinal informed the Democrats that he would accept a similar offer to pray at their convention and made clear his appearance at the Republican convention was nonpartisan. According to the New York Post, President Obama's campaign spokesman said that Catholic clergy will be an important part of a group of interfaith leaders at the Democratic National Convention. And a federal judge in Washington has dismissed a lawsuit against the HHS mandate. The ruling came after the Obama administration rewrote a, quote, safe harbor law, giving the defendant in the case, Wheaton College, a year to comply with the mandate. As a result, the judge ruled that Wheaton, a Christian school, had not alleged a concrete and imminent injury. Becket Fund General Counsel Kyle Duncan says the Obama administration got the suit dismissed on technical grounds. The Becket Fund is representing Wheaton in that lawsuit. Meanwhile, 79 congressmen have signed amicus briefs that support Catholic institutions who have filed suit over the contraception mandate. The briefs, which were prepared by the American Center for Law and Justice, supports 40 Catholic institutions suing over the mandate. Signers of the briefs include New Jersey Congressman Chris Smith and Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. Between 2 and 7 years in jail for a former chief financial officer for the Philadelphia Archdiocese who was fired from her job last year. Anita Gazzardi pled guilty in July to embezzling $900,000 from the Archdiocese, where she had worked for more than 20 years. Gazzardi claims that she gave in to shopping and gambling addictions after feeling betrayed by the church over the priest abuse scandal. A district attorney says Gazzardi took relatives on trips and spent heavily on spas, restaurant meals, and flowers. And Scottish Cardinal Keith O'Brien has called on politicians to, quote, sustain rather than subvert marriage. On Sunday, the Catholic Church in Scotland inaugurated National Marriage Sunday. In a pastoral letter read in the country's 500 parishes, the bishops of Scotland placed a special emphasis on the role of the family founded on marriage. The bishops restated their, quote, deep disappointment that the Scottish government has decided to redefine marriage and legislate for same-sex marriage. The Scottish government has said it would bring forth a bill that would legalize same-sex marriage. Well, Sunday marked the 34th anniversary of the election of Pope John Paul I. Rome Reports has those details.
One of the shortest papacies in history was that of John Paul I. August the 26th marked 34 years since his election back in 1978. At one point, he served as a Patriarch of Venice. Then in 1973, Paul VI made him a cardinal. Once he was elected Pope, he served for only 33 days before passing away. John Paul I chose that name as a way to honor his two predecessors, John XXIII and Paul VI. He was actually the first pope with two names. The theme of his papacy was humility. It's a virtue he characterized from the time of his coronation ceremony when he rejected the traditional papal tiara.
And a conference on John Paul I will take place at the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston, Queens in October to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the late pontiff's birth. Speakers will include John Paul's niece, and we will have more on the conference next week on Currents. Well, the registration for next year's World Youth Day begins on Tuesday, and Rome Reports has all the details.
Brazil is getting ready for the coming World Youth Day in Rio. Registration will open this August 28th. All the instructions and requirements are listed on the World Youth Day website. Everything from group leaders, travel packages, and of course, pricing. Those who register before January 31st, 2013 will get a 5% discount. There's also the option of making a donation to potential pilgrims who come from economically disadvantaged countries. The coming months will be quite busy for organizers. On September 14th, the official World Youth Day anthem will be released. Then in October, registration will open for Missionary Week. World Youth Day in Rio will take place from July 23rd to the 28th of next year.
Stay tuned, there's more Currents ahead. Coming up, the Church's answers to some tough questions.
I don't want to impose anything. I believe, as John Paul II said, we're here to propose. We're not here to impose. There's a profound difference.
Welcome back. The Catholic Church in the U.S. has been on the front lines of a number of issues this year, the biggest being the battle over the federal contraception mandate. One prominent Catholic is looking to prepare the faithful to make the Church's voice heard in the public square on a whole host of issues affecting the Church and society. Catholic League President Bill Donahue frequently speaks out when Catholics and the Church are unfairly targeted. Donahue is also the author of numerous books, and we recently caught up with him at Pauline Books and Media to discuss his latest, Why Catholicism Matters.
Ignorance can be cured through education. Now, I'm all in favor of education, people. Spent 20 years in education. But if you think you can resolve all of these problems through education, you need an education. I wrote this book because I'm concerned that an awful lot of people who are practicing Catholics don't have enough intellectual ammunition and to embolden them to feel the way they should be proud about the Church. I also wrote it for those people who may have one foot out the door, who may, for whatever reason, be somewhat disenchanted. Maybe this will bring them back.
I read the book, and I was very impressed with how positive he was, how articulate about the virtues, and how well he presented the effect that a virtuous living can change society.
We live in a society which people say, I am my own moral arbiter of truth. I make up my own ideas of right and wrong. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. There are no moral absolutes. There's no such thing as truth. There's no external authority. We all make up our ideas willy-nilly. That's insane, people. You can't even carry out a coherent society that way.
I came to tonight's talk because I've always admired Mr. Donahue for his feistiness and for what he spoke about tonight, courage. I think Catholics need courageous people to inspire them to get out there and spread the news.
There are people in the academy in particular who are not interested in logic and reason, empirical evidence. They've made up their minds. And the Catholic Church is hated. Why? A lot of it has to come down to the fact, what I called in secular sabotage, the three most dreaded words in the English language today. Thou shalt not.
I've read about a third of his book so far, which I'm enjoying, and I like the positivity of it as opposed to stating the rules and so on. He gives a lot of reasons why the Catholics do what they do. He also cites, from what I've read so far in the justice section, how good and beneficial the Catholic Church has been to society, not just today, but for all of its existence in history, 2,000 years.
And there's a whole generation of young people who have grown up. They've heard a lot of negative news about the Catholic Church. Admittedly, some of it's been self-generated, but an awful lot of it is just characteristically unfair. I think the Catholic Church is the right answer, not just for Catholics, but for everybody. I want to make it clear, I don't want to impose anything. I believe, as John Paul II said, we're here to propose. We're not here to impose. There's a profound difference. It's kind of hard to get the voice of the Catholic Church out there. There's a cacophony of catcalls coming against us, trying to drown us out. And all I'm simply saying is this: give us a respectful hearing. The Catholic voice is an important voice in a secular society. If people disagree, fine. But don't stop us from getting our message out. We have free speech rights as well.
And Bill Donohue's book, Why Catholicism Matters, is available online and in bookstores and directly from the Catholic League. Don't go anywhere. More Currents ahead. When we return, hoping that he'll one day be known as Saint Pierre.
Lessons to be learned from Venerable Pierre Toussaint are for the Church Universal. But I think that it has got to mean something very, very special to the Haitian people.
Finally tonight, in his time, he was known for his skill as a hairdresser. But this man, brought from Haiti to New York as a slave, was also known for his generosity, materially and spiritually. He remained a slave in order to take care of his former master's widow, even when he could have been freed. He also raised funding and contributed his own money to build what is now St. Patrick's Old Cathedral in Manhattan's Little Italy. Pierre Toussaint was buried in that cathedral cemetery, but his remains were eventually moved to an even more prestigious location, the crypt at St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue. Toussaint's sainthood cause has been ongoing, and earlier this summer, a mass was held at Our Lady of Refuge Church in Midwood to pray for Pierre.
Welcome to all who are here this afternoon to honor Pierre Toussaint. C'est parti content, moins content, ouais nous aujourd'hui pour nous honorer Pierre Toussaint.
Today is a great celebration in memory of Venerable Pierre Toussaint, Haitian born, and he was an immigrant who worked hard to help the people of God. And he went to heaven a day like this today, and so we come together to celebrate his life.
Pierre Toussaint was born a slave in Haiti, brought to the United States, was very successful in his profession, but was mostly known for his extreme devotion to the Eucharist. He went to church every morning. And number two, by his extreme charity.
Pierre Toussaint paid the price for the liberation of many, many slaves, and his house has become almost like a center, a community center, where he welcomed people, he gave hospitality to slaves, and he taught them and sought employment for them. Someone says that he's kind of image of Christ carved in ebony.
Ask you to pray for the beatification and eventually the canonization of this great man who came from Haiti and who lived in New York, just as so many of you come from Haiti and live in New York.
Pope John Paul II declared him venerable. Once you are declared venerable, automatically you are on the waiting list to become a saint if you have 2 miracles, unless you are a martyr. If you are a martyr, you don't need 2 miracles. But right now we are awaiting 2 miracles for Pierre Toussaint to be canonized.
You know, this path of canonization is not about giving a special award to Venerable Pierre Toussaint.
It is really about us telling the story of holiness so that we might achieve what God has called us to.
The cause and the story and the lessons to be learned from Venerable Pierre Toussaint are for the Church Universal. But I think that it has got to mean something very, very special to the Haitian people. And we hope that that will give them great cause, great encouragement. A people who have endured so much, both in Haiti as well as throughout the land, that we think that his life, but then of course his beatification and canonization could be a source of tremendous encouragement for them.
And speaking of saints, Tuesday is the Feast of St. Augustine, and on that show that evening we will hear about a new movie on his life and a new special edition of his Confessions. Also on Tuesday we will have more on the presidential campaign season as the Republican National Convention shifts into high gear. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @currentsny. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faubles. Now, as we deal with some periods of rain here in New York, let's take in a much nicer scene, the Italian town of Castel Gandolfo during Pope Benedict's Angelus prayer on Sunday. Thank you for watching and have a good night.